Thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with your host, Prophetess T. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on God's green earth, guys. Thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it is your time to shine with me, your hostess, Prophetess T. Guys, I'm kind of excited about today. We're going to get into a serious topic, and I think it's one that's relevant to the time that we're living in, especially, I think, with the atmosphere that is over the world. And when I say atmosphere that's over the world, uh, I think there's a lot of chaos, meaning that people are combative, more combative than I've ever seen in my 53 years on this earth. I've never seen human beings okay with being hateful and mean towards each other. I've never seen it so bad as to where even Christians are combative towards each other, especially when it comes to dealing with one another, and being okay with agreeing to disagree, and not being hateful towards each other afterwards. Um, and then I think a lot of us being okay with people being 100% real needs to stop. And that's on the real. Because I think it sets a tone for the next generation. And in saying that, this month is a month that is known for two things. One, for breast cancer awareness, which is a topic that I've covered the past year and the previous year. And this year, I specifically want to dive into domestic violence, because this is a month where that is brought to the attention of everybody. And the thing about domestic violence, I think it's uh, I'm going to let our guests get into the definition of it, but I think it's important that we talk about it, because if we keep allowing this spirit that's over the earth of, being combative, believe it or not, we ourselves are being abusive, towards one another. Domestic violence doesn't just have to be physical, man on man or man and woman. Domestic violence can be in a situation of even towards a child, the same sex. It can be verbal, sexual. It covers a multitude of things, and to me, we're kind of turning into the United States of abusive America, and it needs to stop. God is not pleased. We know that God advocates for the oppressed, and in biblical terms, oppression is dealing with abuse. That is not the nature or the characteristic of the God we serve. And so I want to talk about this because I think it needs to be brought to the forefront again, that it is something that's not acceptable, nor should it be tolerated. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, gender abuse, and none of it, child abuse, none of that should be tolerated. And we as a society established and on the grounds of biblical freedom, freedom to express yourself and all that, we do need to establish that there should be some boundaries as to what that freedom entails. Also, being a person who overcame domestic abuse herself, in a domestic violent relationship, marriage for 19 years, afraid to get out of it because of biblical, my Christian beliefs, but understanding that God didn't want me to stay in that. That was not of God. Matter of fact, that marriage wasn't of God. That was all of me. That was all me. I got to take that. I own my part in that. But nothing in the Bible says that I had to stay in there and take the physical or the sexual or the verbal abuse. And then because of that, the things that I allowed to go on and the things that happened to me that I didn't, I've tried to fight against, affects your children. So we need to get into this conversation because I do believe there's somebody out there who may be living that life right now, or you may be the person who knows somebody in your family or a friend or a neighbor or somebody at work that's in it, or maybe you're a person who's in this relationship and you don't understand what you're experiencing. You're being brainwashed by a narcissist or somebody that's breadcrumbing you or even gaslighting you into believing these are things that you brought on yourself. And today we're going to give you a wake up call and let you know, sis or brother, because it can happen to men as well. That is not the reality of it. So, without further ado, guys, I want to introduce to you a young woman. I appreciate her reaching out to me so that we can get into this good tea about domestic violence. And please, please forgive me if I kill her name. But this is going to be the outreach director for Spring Haven in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And her name is Shonna Sheckles. And she's going to be bringing us some good information and giving us some tools and things that we could utilize if this is you or if this is somebody you know, or even how to have a conversation with somebody that's in an abusive situation. So, sis, thank you for coming on to the podcast. Please tell me I didn't kill your name.
You didn't. You pronounced it correctly. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I am just thrilled. I'm tickled pink or purple
Okay.
about us getting into this because it is uh a very important topic. And even my research in doing this, it says if I've got to update it, and I pray I do that, it affects at least 10 million people in the United States
Thanks.
alone.
Right. A
That
year.
is crazy.
It does.
So let's
It's an
get in.
epidemic.
So let's get into it. First of all, guys, before we get started, do me a favor. If you are watching the live broadcast of this podcast, hit your share button, share to your groups, go get your auntie, cousin, mama, and them, even your haters, your instigators, and all them, and invite them in because this is a very serious topic. And I do want you guys to share it. I think it is something that should be discussed more frequently than just once a
Right.
year. It truly should be something that's brought up, especially with our young girls because believe
Especially.
it or not, children can even be involved in this.
Yes.
So let's get into this good topic. First of all, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and then go into explain to us what domestic violence is.
Okay. Again, my name is Shonna Sheckles. I'm from Bardstown, Kentucky. I graduated from high school here in Bardstown. I went on to Western Kentucky University where I received my BA in Broadcast and Speech Communications. I am a military wife. My husband is retired after 24 years. We have 2 adult children, and I have 5 grandchildren, 4 grandsons and 1 granddaughter.
Oh,
And I have been with Springhaven for 23 years as a
wow.
victims advocate, and for the past year as the director of outreach services for victims and survivors of domestic violence.
That is awesome. I think it's like a divine meeting up between us because I actually wanted to reach out to you guys for what I do at my job.
Okay.
I'm the chaplain chairperson of the UAW in
Okay.
Elizabethtown at Matulsa,
Okay.
and the chaplains want to get engaged in doing some outreach missions work. So
Okay.
I wanted to reach out to you guys. So we'll talk about that
Okay.
off later.
All right.
But so I want to talk about first of all understanding what domestic violence is. So what is that and what does it look like?
Domestic violence is negative behavior. I'm sorry about that. A negative behavior from an intimate partner. It is being abusive toward them, whether it is physical, mental, emotional, sexual, financial, verbal, and now of late it is digital, where people are using devices, getting behind their devices and threatening that individual, whether it's a spouse, a girlfriend, a boyfriend. And domestic violence can happen to anyone. It does not discriminate. It does not care about your educational value. It doesn't care about your economic situation. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your religious preference. It doesn't care about anything. Domestic violence, anybody can be a victim of domestic violence.
And that's just crazy to think that now, even doing this, getting on the internet, getting on your cell phone, um, can be a possibility for somebody to begin to attack you.
Right. It's
Um,
used as a tool against victims. Some of my clients that I deal with, I tell them, you got a cell phone? I asked, do you have a cell phone? They're like, sure, everybody has a cell phone. Okay. Well, let's go to your settings and let's turn your location off. And at least 9 times out of 10, when they go into their settings, they might not have turned their location on, but somebody did.
wow.
And so to me, that is the first thing that you need to do to start freeing yourself from the domestic situation. Victims of domestic violence go back into their situations between 7 and 12 times. That's a lot of times.
And I can be a witness to that because, like I stated, coming out of that myself, I did it. I stayed in a marriage, a very bad marriage, for 19 years, and I moved in and out. I don't know how many times. It was the last 7 years of the marriage. I stuck it out and I didn't move out again because my father put his foot down and was
Right.
like, "This hurts too much.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't come back here." He says, "You're either going to make this decision to get your marriage fixed, or get out of it permanently."
Right. Right.
Um, and I
But you
think
know
that
what? Our family members, our friends, they put their foot down between 7 and 12 times as well, because victims go to their family and friends. They tell everything that has been happening up until that point. They get us all riled up as family members and as friends. And then we try to, put them up in our homes, try to give them money, transportation, because these are the things that the perpetrator is taking away from them
right.
once they have left the situation. And then after you've made all these concessions as a family member or a friend, and you come home one day and I mean, it's a ghost town. They're
Mhm.
gone and they've gone back to that situation. So now the victim really is in a catch 22 because they want their marriage or they want their relationship. They're trying to make things work and they've told you all the bad and the ugly. Now you're over here feeling some type of way, mad normally, and they've gone back.
Yeah.
So it's like tug of war. And then the family and friends, they get tired of fooling with it and they say just what your dad said. you know
Yeah.
if you choose to stay in that situation, that is on you, but you cannot come back here. But that doesn't do anything but pump up the perpetrator, because then he uses your family or friends emotions against you. See, they never cared anything about you. They don't love you. You don't really have any true friends. What you need to do is stay here with me.
Right.
It's not that bad. Is it that bad? And of course, the victim's going to say, no, it's not that bad. Then why did you leave? Because they don't want to be bothered. So what they're doing is really, really helping to alienate you from you being the victim from your family and friends so that they can continue on with the abuse.
And that's exactly what manifested. He actually convinced me that I wouldn't amount to nothing. I would never be nothing. Nobody wanted me. Nobody loved me.
Right.
I didn't have any value. I had no protection. And so, and I began to believe
Believe
that.
that. And
So
I
yeah.
tell people all the time, if somebody tells you that you're stupid, fat, and ugly day in, day out, not 24 hours a day, because hopefully they go to work somewhere. So then that might be 12 to 18 to 20 hours, whatever. You're going to start to believe that.
Mhm.
And you don't have anybody to bounce that off of because of the alienation from your friends and family, which your perpetrator caused, and you're in the middle.
Mhm.
And then, so many times people say, well, why does she stay? And I talk in terms of she and he, because 80% of all victims of domestic violence are women. So that makes 80% of all perpetrators men. Now, men can be victims of domestic violence as well, but they're less likely to report because of how society has deemed men should be.
Mhm.
um you're not supposed to be weak, you're not supposed to cry, you definitely not supposed to let some woman beat you up.
Right.
That's a serious no-no according to society. But then we have these young men that have been raised either by a single mom or in a dual parent home where you couldn't fight your sisters, you couldn't hit your girlfriend, you definitely couldn't raise your hand to your mother.
Right.
So they get hooked up with some of these females that maybe came from a home where domestic violence was prevalent. And it's that fight or flight, I'm going to get you before you get me type
Mhm.
thing. And then the male becomes the victim, but they're less likely to report. And for African American males, it's like 10 to 15% because they don't report, because they
Right.
don't have any respect for the police. So if they go to the police department, they're going to be questioned about, is that your car? Do you have any guns in the car? You smell like weed. I need to check your car. All that kind of stuff. So they're not going to put up with that. And with all of the killings of people of color, males of color, they definitely not going to call smoke in on themselves to have them come to their homes.
Right.
So that's another problem. You're scared to even try to get help to be safe.
That is
And
so
that's a whole nother situation.
that is so crazy.
It is.
Is there if you're in a relationship, do you think there's flags that let you know that this person may be a potential person that if they haven't started to hit you, that you
Well,
should
here's the
watch for?
thing. Um, Nobody starts a relationship. They don't do guns ablazing. They don't come out screaming, hollering, cursing, jerking, doing all these kinds of things. They attempt to groom you. Most perpetrators of domestic violence are narcissists. And so they think that they know everything. They think that, they're right about everything. They sulk, they get mad. I'm so sorry about this. They sulk, they get mad. So if you are in tune with that, just knowing how a narcissist is, then that could be a red flag sign. But nobody, not even perpetrators of domestic violence, come out acting crazy, what I consider acting crazy.
Mhm.
So it's almost like a child molester. They groom their victims. They groom them. They want them to fall in love with them. They want them to think that they're their everything. Jealousy. Jealousy is a key. A lot of the women that I speak with, they're like, well, he didn't want me to work and he wanted my hair to be a certain length and a certain color. Well, he picked out my clothes no, grooming you, grooming you to only depend on him. And then when he decided that he was going to act some type of way, then you were supposed to accept that. And because you have been groomed in that manner, most victims of domestic violence do accept that, and they turn the fingers back on themselves. They think that they are the problem when they're not. They're not. So, I mean, jealousy is a key.
And I think one of the this is why to me it's real imperative now that we actually, understand the renewing of the mind and
Right.
and being self-aware of who you are and your value. Because I think sometimes if we're lacking something or if we feel empty, like we have an emptiness within ourselves, we're searching for it in
Right.
somebody else.
Right.
And so it sets us up. And it's as if I feel, because with my ex-husband, he was 23, I was 16. And I feel like he's seen the vulnerability in me.
Hmm.
He's seen that he
Right.
could train me
Right.
into what he needed.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. And that's perpetrators would not pick a woman like me. They would not pick a woman that has a lot of mouth, has a lot of confidence, and just will not stand for anything. They wouldn't waste their time with me because it would be hard for them to try to groom me into that because I, it just wouldn't happen. It just would not happen. And so people, men tell me out in the business world, just around town or whatever, they be like, your husband is a saint because I could not put up with you. And that's okay. And I tell them, you know what? And you ain't even my type to even try to put up with. So we both feel the same way. It's great.
I
I
say
like
that
it.
about my husband though, but it's because of my I don't know, my fruitiness. But
Go ahead.
but because I'm a mouthy person. That was my defense mechanism, is that I can
Right,
talk. I'm not a physical fighter.
right,
I've never had to. My
right,
mouth usually can win my battles for me.
right.
But with this person, I think, like I said, I felt empty. I came out of a family of domestic violence.
Okay.
So my dad, military. I'm an army brat.
Mhm.
My dad was an alcoholic, and my dad was abusive. Um, my mom fought my dad. I never seen it.
Right,
Because I guess some things went down before us kids got big enough. My mom whooped my dad one good
right,
time, so he turned his anger towards us when she wasn't around.
right, right.
Um,
And sometimes that happens. And you said earlier that children are victims of domestic violence as well. And if you grow up in a home where domestic violence is prevalent, you are not going to let anybody hurt your mother.
right.
And even though a child is no match for a grown man or another woman, whatever the relationship is, the dynamics of the relationship, whatever that is. And then that's how kids get involved. And that's how kids get hurt because they trying to jump on people's backs, they scratching, they pulling, and all that. And in anger, the perpetrator pushes or, knocks them down, really not meaning to hurt the child, but they do. They
Mhm,
do. So kids are victims of domestic violence as well. And there's some studies out there, they're talking about all these elementary school bullies.
mhm.
And it's studies out there that say at least 47% of all elementary school bullies, boys, um, come from a home where domestic violence is prevalent. And it
Wow.
makes sense because if the male figure in your life is being verbally abusive, physically abusive, and you see that and you see them winning because the victim, gives into them, not so much, yeah, gives into them to keep the peace. So they take the little bullies, take their show on the road to the local elementary school playground, gather up all the swings, verbally abusive to the other kids, daring them to even touch the swing because this is what they see at home and it works.
Mhm.
But it's sad that it works because you know we are allowing in our society uh, abuse to start at such a young age and go on up through. I do a healthy relationship group at Barchtown City Schools, at Barchtown High School. They're the first high school in this area that allows an advocate to come in during the school day and actually hold a group.
Wow.
Yeah, our kids really, really need it because
Absolutely.
the education and awareness needs to start when these people are little. I
Absolutely.
say fifth grade.
And I'm with you on that, especially now because I am a mental health coach, and one of the things that I'm studying, I'm actually doing youth and learning that the youngest age documented, reported, is 8 years old as a suicide. And all behind the bullying stuff that goes on, or feeling
Mhm.
hopeless and helpless. And I remember earlier this year when school started back, or right after COVID or something, when the kids started going back, a child in Jefferson County. The little boy did not want to go back to school because he
Right.
was being picked on,
Mhm.
bullied, and he killed himself.
Yes.
A child.
Right, right. And for me, kids should be about playing outside,
Absolutely.
reading books, getting their homework, riding their bike, being safe,
Right.
and not have to worry about going to school to be picked on because they look different, they talk different, something like that. I just think that it is awful. But I will say that schools seem to really be picking up on that, and they're not tolerating bullies. So but you can't get to everyone because there again, some of the little kids are afraid to tell.
Right.
And that goes back to victims of domestic violence. It's a deep, dark secret, and they don't want to tell anybody because they don't want to be judged. They feel like they feel like that they are being judged. Why didn't you leave?
Right.
Um, well, maybe the reason why she did not leave is because he threatened to kill her kids. Maybe she didn't leave because he hadn't allowed her to have a job, a vehicle, be vocal in their finances, and she doesn't have anything to leave with. He's already helped alienate her from her friends and family. So where is she going to go? But see, that's where people and agencies like Springhaven comes into play, because we have a shelter program that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that are manned. Our help and information line is manned by family advocates. So people can call, and if you're in a dangerous situation and you need a safe place to be, and it's due to domestic violence, not homelessness, not anything, it's strictly domestic violence. You can come there. It's temporary, but what does temporary mean? For some of the people that have come to Springhaven over the years, some people have come and stayed 5 minutes. Some people have come and stayed 18 months. It just depends on their situation and what they need to be able to stand on their 2 feet without the perpetrator. And the police in our areas are really, really good about going and picking up victims, bringing them to shelter. I mean, it's just a phone call. It is just a phone call.
Can we go ahead and get that number, and then Danny can run it
Yeah.
across the screen for me?
It is 270
And this
7.
is if you're in the Elizabeth, town,
No, it's
no?
we service the Lincoln Trail Ad District. So that is Nelson County, Hardin, Marion, Washington, LaRue, Breck, Meade, and Grayson counties. We serve the Lincoln Trail Ad District, so there's 8 counties. So anybody that is experiencing domestic violence in any of those counties can give us a call, and there's a phone assessment that we have to do. And then, either they're offered shelter if they're in need of shelter, or they're offered outreach services. And so our outreach services consist of education, counseling, mental health counseling. We have a therapist on staff. If people, need help paying bills, because a lot of times when women leave their situations, they got to leave the checkbook too, or now
Mhm.
the debit card. They got to leave that. So that person might leave them but take everything. And so they're sitting there, and here it is toward the end of the month, and the rent needs to be paid. So we can help with things like that. But that number, see, I got off on something else. That
No,
number is 270-769-1234.
270-769-1234.
34. Yes. And so that is to call and find out about our services. It's also if you're in need of shelter, then, like I said, there's a small assessment that has to be done over the phone to make sure, that you can come to shelter. We're not a homeless shelter, just strictly domestic violence. A lot of people get upset and they're like, well, I have a homeless person. Can't they at least come there and take a shower? The answer to that is no. And I know that sounds mean, hateful, and crude, but that is the truth, because once someone is inside our facility, we can't put them out. Can't do that. So that's why we don't allow people just to come up, hang out. all that. We can't do that because we are strictly there for victims and their children of domestic violence. We have, when you say shelter, I did a presentation the first part of the month, and I asked, "What do you, when I say shelter, what do you think?" And they said, "Ooh, it's moldy, and it's just rows and rows of cots, and it's dark and it's scary." And I'm like off of Pressure Luck, the whammy. That's
Yeah.
not it. That's not it.
Yeah.
It is actually a Victorian style home. We have a family side where there it's like dorm suites. There is a full bath with double sinks, shower tub in the middle of the rooms. The rooms come equipped with mini refrigerators, TVs, chest of drawers, closets, bunk beds, full size beds for the family. And then we also have what we call the single side for victims of domestic violence that might not have their children, might not have any children. And so they have a whole nother side where it's like it's dorm like, where they share rooms and there's a bathroom on their side. We have washing machines, dryers. We have a industrial size kitchen. We have a dining room with round tables where families can sit together and talk about, what has happened during the day. Our kids go to city school in Elizabethtown. The buses come and pick them up. The parents, if they have transportation, they can take them to school, but the buses will come and pick them up as well. We help with resume writing. If someone does not have transportation, we have vans that we're able to take people to work, to doctor's appointments, take our children to daycare. So it is a family style home for victims of domestic violence, and we can house comfortably. We can house up to 35 people.
That
So
sounds really nice.
last
I
week we
mean,
had 42 because it was a lady that called that had 5 kids, and they were in our ad district, and we can't turn them away, and that's what we said. You might have to sleep in the playroom, you know, until someone moves out or whatever, but, the reply was, "As long as me and my babies are safe." So that's how we operate.
and I wanna say it's amazing from the time that, when I went through those experience some years ago, thank God that's past, as to what it was like
Mhm.
trying to go to a place, of shelter. It's
Right,
changed. It's totally different.
right,
Um, and it's more available to you because I know, I think the first time I ever heard of it was when a movie called The Burning Bed
right.
came out, and a whole community watched this woman get abused
Mhm.
and did nothing all the way to the police department.
Right,
So it's totally different now. So,
right.
um, if there's somebody who's in a situation, and they can't, and they're wanting to get to the process of how to escape, is there anything that they should do to prepare for that?
Yes. First of all, you have to move in silence. For the longest time, I didn't understand what that meant. And, when I came up with the idea, if I was going to do something, I would tell, that's not how you operate. You move in silence. And so, I tell people it's called safety planning. So when we safety plan with them and they want to leave, and maybe they're not ready to leave at that exact moment, but I tell them, find you a place where you can stash a little money away that that person will not recognize that that money is gone. Then get your important papers together, your birth certificate, social security number, those cards, excuse me, for you and your children. And stash those away. You can put, if you have a vehicle, you can put them under the mat of your car. There's lots of places that you can put those things. You can take them to, if you're allowed to work, you can take them to work and have them put in someone's office. But it's all about the person and what they're willing, to do. And I tell them, now, after you talk to me and, you're feeling gung ho and you're ready to go, don't go home and be in front of that person and throwing clothes and stuff into a suitcase and getting all your personal belongings while that person is there. That could get you hurt. Because the most volatile time in a domestic violence relationship is when the victim has had enough and they are leaving. That's when most people lose their lives. So don't, I tell them, don't do that. Just do it over time, or better yet, leave it. We can help you get social security cards. We can help you get IDs. We can help you get your license back. We can do all those things. Just leave it. But a lot of people are into stuff. They're
Mm.
into cars, they're into houses, they're into couches, chairs, purses, shoes, clothing. I love that like the next person. But if it is a matter of me being safe so that I can raise my kids, I can get some more of that stuff. It's only stuff, it's only material things.
Right.
I can't get another me. And
Right.
when I say that to some victims, they said, I didn't think about it that way. I said, this you only get one crack at life. And when it's over, it is over. I'm sure that the 27 people that lost their lives in 2023, I bet you if they could have another crack at life, they might do some things different. They didn't deserve to be killed in a domestic situation, but it happened. And that's 27 too many.
Amen.
27 too many. So, I mean, domestic violence is not good. It's just not good. In August there was the murder at the Justice Center in Hardin County, and I happened to be
Yeah.
there. And the young lady was on her way into the courtroom that I serve, um, to get her emergency protective order turned into a DVO, which is a domestic violence order of permanent status for up to 3 years in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And she was never, ever given the opportunity to present it to the judge because he killed her and her mother in the parking lot while her two children watched. And then he had the nerve to run and then attempt to take his life. And they had to skyvac him to Vanderbilt, where he died. So this is really real.
Yeah.
It is very real to me. And like I said, I've been with Springhaven for 23 years. And in those 23 years, that was the second time in my professional career as a victims advocate that I was actually scared. And I was scared that day because he got away. And nobody really knew where he was going. And I had parked in that same parking lot 5 minutes before he took their lives.
My God.
So,
I was at work when that happened, but we got the alerts about all that.
oh yeah, on lockdown and just I
Yeah.
have never ever been through anything like that.
Mm.
And the only thing that I could think of that I wanted to see my husband. I know it sounds crazy, but I just wanted to see my husband. I wanted to be in his presence. My kids, they were frantic. They were calling. Police were asking questions. I really couldn't talk to my kids because I was trying to talk to the police and I was trying to help keep other people calm, other survivors that were there for the same purpose. And it was a three-ring circus. It really and truly was. And it was definitely one in my head. And, I talked to my husband, but it wasn't like being in his presence.
Yeah.
And I kept it together until I walked in my house and he was there. And then I just had a complete meltdown. I just had a complete meltdown because that was something that no one should ever have to experience, because that was really bad. But what it taught me is that I know that domestic violence is real because I've lived it, worked it for 23 years. But when you see someone laying on the cold, hard ground that has been shot down like a dog, it really, really it comes to you. It really, really does. The job that I do is real. The job that I do is dangerous. Me, my motto for my job has always been that I am that temporary voice for someone that has lost their voice. And I stand on that. And I stood on it that day. I stood on it with tears, but I stood on it, and I still stand on it. And I will continue to do that, just to show, that person that you can get your voice back. You can get your voice back.
And I think we need to remember this most of all. If any of you have ever had a person hit you and they tell you they're not gonna ever do it again, don't believe the hype.
Mm. Don't believe it,
If they
because
do
it
it
gets
once,
worse.
they'll do it again.
Yeah,
Mm.
it gets worse. There's a thing that we teach in our classes. It's called DV 101, Domestic Violence 101, and it's called the cycle of violence. So the first stage is the honeymoon stage. Everything is fine. The relationship is going so good. You happy, he's happy, the kids are happy, the dog's happy, everybody's just happy. And it's the family and the family dynamics that you, as a mother and a wife, that you want. And everybody has some sort of dysfunction in their family and in their marriage, but you should always be able to agree to disagree. And it really shouldn't come down to somebody putting their hands on you or putting their mouth on you to make a
Right,
grown person do or believe what they want you to do or what they believe.
right.
But, back to the honeymoon phase, everything's good. Then we get to the tension building phase. And the honeymoon phase could last a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year. I mean, there's really no time frame on it. But then the tension building phase where, nothing is good enough. The same stuff that I did last week, this week is a problem. And as the victim, not understanding that, but know what it's leading up to. So they try to do their best to accommodate their spouse or their significant other, and nothing is good. The food's cold, the food's nasty. We had the same thing last Wednesday. Why do we have this Wednesday? The kids is really bad. They're screaming and yelling. You need to do something about that dog, or else I'm gonna throw him up against the wall. I mean, it's just all this. It's just constant, just in your face about what is going on. And then it goes into the blow up stage. And normally the blow up stage consists of, calling you out of your name, pushing you around while you're trying to exit the situation. They're pushing you back so that you cannot exit, and then it just becomes full blown physical violence. And then, as easy as it started, it goes right back to the honeymoon phase, and it's really like a hamster being on a wheel, and hamsters don't know how to get off the wheel. And victims of domestic violence sometimes find it hard to get off that cycle of violence wheel.
That, like I said, was me because I didn't want to be a statistic, even though I was a statistic.
Right,
And then I kept thinking, I don't want my kids not to have their dad.
right,
And I mean, it just became one thing, and then they're going to hate you and they're going to turn against you.
right,
But in all actuality, they will heal.
right,
I like I said, it's once again getting yourself to a place where people have to understand you've got to get to the point where you're tired,
right,
where you're at it. And like I said, for me, I actually tried to kill myself. That was my tired point. And for God, only God.
right,
I woke up and he was standing over me. I had taken every pill I had. I don't know how I survived it, but to say God. And he stood over me and said, the next time you want to do that, let me know so I can make sure the kids ain't here. And walked out the room. And I thought to myself, something clicked like, do you realize you was gonna leave your kids with this crazy so
right,
and
right.
that
That
day
was
I
it.
left and I
Mhm.
never went back that
And
day.
and like you say, it's got to be. It's not for me, and that's what I tell my clients. I will stand with you. I will do what I can for you, but I can't make up your mind for you.
Mhm.
And I will, I guess what has kept me in this profession so long is that I meet people where they're at.
Mm.
And yeah, I have high expectations for my clients like I have high expectations for myself. But I will tell them, whatever you decide, I will support you in it. Whether it be good or whether it be bad, I will support you in it. And I might tell you, oof, that might not be a good idea. But if that's what you want to do, then I'm going to support you in that. You have my phone number, you have the number at Springhaven. If you ever need me again, call me.
And I just want to encourage family members as well. It is tiresome. It is tiresome to have somebody move in and out of your life, and I do understand that just for your mental health, sometimes you do have to put up that boundary,
Right,
but always be there. If they do decide to really go, don't ever throw it back up in their face how many
right,
times they went back up there. When I really did it, I didn't tell my parents. I left and I didn't tell nobody. Just like you said, I
right.
did it in silence. I knew how long he was going to be at work. I put everything I could practically into my car, and I went and stayed with somebody, and I sent my kids somewhere else. And I
Hmm.
didn't contact him for 2 weeks because I mean he was trying because cell phone I didn't have. I didn't have none of that.
Right,
I wasn't working none of that. And like you said, if you can leave all that, leave all that. I even read somewhere that even like you said, prepare. Uh, Take clothes, hide them somewhere at a neighbor's house,
right.
down the neighbor's house. Those track phone, the trace phones you can buy now.
Throw them
Get
away.
one, purchase, and keep it somewhere else. You know,
Hmm.
like you said, get your important papers. You can photocopy. You can take pictures and
Right
send it,
now.
send
Right,
it to the cloud. Whatever you got to do,
right,
but and don't tell 'em. And I like I said, I didn't tell my family because my mom kind of played a part in it. Bless her heart. Some of the dysfunction in my my first marriage. I didn't tell nobody. That way, nobody made the mistake and told where I went,
right.
and I left.
You
And
can't tell what you don't know.
yeah, so and then they don't have to. They don't feel like they don't have to be in between the two.
Right,
And I mean,
right.
he built a whole story. I mean, a whole story in the neighborhood against me. Then people, everybody thought I was nuts and crazy.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but
Perpetrators are really good about lying and power and control. That is the definition of a perpetrator. They want power and control over the person that they're supposed to be in love with or love. And in all my time doing this job, I have never been able to find the answer to that question. You know, if you don't have power and control over your own self and your own actions, how you gonna have power and control over somebody else? I can't answer that. I guess if I ever find the answer, then I'll come home.
I think it's the fact that we surrender it when we allow ourselves to get in that when we allow ourselves to be convinced of that. And once again, that's all dealing with things that are lacking with us. When we
Right.
really learn to love ourselves, learn our value, our
Mhm.
self-worth, when we're a whole person by ourselves,
Right.
and we can recognize another whole person.
Yeah.
I
And
think
you've
it's
got to be able to get to that point
yeah,
after you've been, because it's trauma.
and it takes
You have
years,
been traumatized.
and it takes
And,
years.
the answer to it is not jumping, as my mother used to say, jumping from the pot into the frying pan. That's not the answer.
Yep, that's what
Love
I did.
yourself first.
Right.
You're no good to anybody else if you don't love yourself,
Yeah.
if you can't find yourself.
Yeah.
Because normally, if you jump from the pot to the frying pan, you're jumping right back into the same pan.
Cycle.
Yeah, you're getting right back with that person. They have the same personality as what you just left.
Right. That's why I tell people get healthy and get healed before you get into another relationship.
Right,
Honey, you can be lonely, but you're not alone. God is always there
right,
with you. And you
right.
got to learn that. So get your relationship with God rectified and straight so that
Hmm.
you can get built up. And
Right,
I mean, the Bible talks about God took abuse so seriously that even back in the Old Testament when they was talking about it, if a man raped a woman, that was considered him being murdered. You're going to die
right,
behind that. You are to be killed if you took a woman's
right.
innocence. So I mean, that's how serious God looks at this. You are not. You were not. put on this earth to be abused.
No.
You were not put on this earth to be oppressed. Man ain't supposed to be ruling over no other man
No.
because we can't rule. Like you
Right.
said, we can't even control our own self.
Right.
How can we control somebody else?
Someone
How can we
else.
dictate, somebody
Right.
else's uh standards of lifestyle, all that stuff? So if you do find yourself in this situation, let's put that number up again. And you are in the surrounding counties. Nelson, let me make sure I got them all. I think I did.
Okay.
Nelson, Hardin, Meade, LaRue, Grayson. Uh, I can't read my own handwriting.
Washington.
Washington, and you have one.
Marion.
Marion. That's what it was.
Yes.
I didn't put the N on it.
Right.
Um, this is the number to Spring Haven. You can get information, even if you're not ready to leave at this very moment. Still
Right.
reach out to somebody and let somebody talk to you. Get in therapy if you can get in therapy,
Right.
because that's what I had started.
Mhm.
I actually got with a psychiatrist and a therapist, and
Mhm.
she told me she would either help me to live in my relationship or help me to get out of it.
Yeah, right.
She
And
got me
those are the
together to
only
get
2
out of it.
things. Those
Yeah.
are the only 2 things. And all of our services at Spring Haven are free. We
Hear
don't
that, guys.
charge for anything. We are state and federally funded through the Victims of Crime Act, the Victims Women's Crime Act. Anything that has to do with domestic violence federally, we are funded through them. So nothing costs anything. A lot of people are like, well, I can't afford it. You can't afford free. you know,
Right. Your sanity says for your sanity, you should want it. So
right, right.
even if you're a person who knows of somebody and maybe you want some information, I'm
Right.
quite sure
They
they
can
can share
call
it.
that number. They can call that number and we will be more than willing to help. But you've got to take that step because we don't know what's going on in your life. So you've got to be willing and to get to a point that you want to help yourself and help yourself out of your situation or help yourself learn how to live in your situation.
So sis Shackles, I appreciate you so much. We're
Thank you.
running over a little bit. I do
Okay.
want to, if I get the opportunity, I most definitely want to make sure we stay in touch because I would like to
Okay.
bring you back again.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is a conversation we could keep going, and
Okay.
plus, I I think women should maybe start discussing this more frequently,
Right.
um, because we don't know when
Right.
a new a younger person gets involved. Because even this can be girlfriend boyfriend relationship.
Yes.
This could be brother sister relationship.
Brother sister relationship are not intimate partner, but it's some of the same dynamics.
Yeah,
It's some of
yeah.
the, and so we're strictly for intimate partner. But there again, if someone is having that kind of problem, they can still call us and we can give them numbers where they can reach out to get that, that specific help that they need.
So
So we can
and
answer questions.
And that's same with same-sex relationship, because I know
Yeah.
that some people they come from an abusive situation and that's
Right.
all they learn. It's learned
Right.
behavior. So it's there for you guys. Please take advantage of this. Share this video. You know that my podcast is on all your favorite audio podcast sites, so you can listen to this if you didn't get a chance to sit down and watch the live broadcast. Go back, play this, share it. Um, and once again, says Shackles, Shona. Let's say right.
Yes.
Shona. Okay, Shona. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much once again for
Thank you
reaching
for
out
having me.
and sharing the little bit of time that we had. I know there's so much more, guys, that
Yeah,
you really need to
it
hear.
is.
That's why I want to bring her back again to talk about this. So I have to get with you and look at your schedule
Okay.
so we can see about doing that again. And plus, I think I want to try to bring you to our union hall too, as well, to have an
Okay.
opportunity for anybody that wants information to have access to you and
I'm
do it.
willing.
So that's great. Again, the number is 270 guys 769-1234. 270-769-1234.
Yes.
Please, if you know of somebody, share that number with them. If you have questions that maybe concerns, maybe you know something
Right.
about somebody and maybe you just want to get some
Information.
information for them,
Information is power.
please don't hesitate. She said 24/7. The lines are
Yes, they're
available to
manned.
call. So
You'll
I
never
appreciate
get a recording.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Don't go nowhere. I want you to stay right there.
Okay.
I'm gonna take us out of here, but don't you go nowhere.
Okay. All right.
So y'all know how I do. This is the time of the program where y'all need to go find something to do. So I want you to do me a favor before we end this program. Share this to the group, pin it to your page, save it in your videos or whatever. You'll never know when you might come across somebody that needs this information, and at least you'll have it in your videos saved somewhere. I want you to know, bruh, sis, don't take all this as it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. There is no way in God's green earth you were ever meant to be anybody's whipping post, verbally or physically or sexually. So don't you take that on and blame yourself. I do say some accountability is with us, but don't you take the heavy of that. That's not yours. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Satan wants you to stay in that relationship because he's after your soul. Don't you stay there. That is not God's destiny for you. And I don't care if it's the pastor in your church that's sexually abusing you or manipulating you, whatever it is. I don't care if they call themselves Archbishop Tutu. I don't care if it's the Pope himself. That is not of God. Do not think that you have to stay in any relationship. If you're the first lady of the church, you do not have to stay in that relationship. There is nothing in the Bible that holds you to being abused. Not a word. If you can find it, show it to me. Prove me. Prove me to be a liar. All I know is that the word of God talks about oppression and that we're not to put up with that we don't have to take that. You can get therapy, you can seek help. If you decide to stay with somebody that has been abusive and maybe they want to stop, there is therapy out there for you. There is people who advocate for you as well. If you are the abuser, keep your hands to yourself, get deliverance and freedom because we know that there's a root cause of that. And I want generational curses to end. Today, you can make that choice. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you know of anybody that's in an abusive relationship, once again, the number for oh gosh, I'm talking too fast. Springhaven is 270-769-1234. 270-769-1234 if you're in the state of Kentucky. In Nelson, Hardin, Marion, LaRouge, Grayson, Washington, Meade County, I think I said them all. Reach out to that number, get the information that you need. Don't feel like you're out there by yourself and there's nobody there. There's a whole lot of places that you can reach out to. You can Google and get information to as well, even if you're not in Kentucky, because I know our podcast is broadcast on Roku and that's all over the world. There is a number that you can reach out and get help for yourself as well. Guys, go on and have a blessed day. And let me say it once again out of the words of my favorite vegan, honey, go on and have a good day. But if you can't, don't you go messing up nobody else's. You be blessed and know that you are highly favored. And we'll see you next week right back here on I've Got Favor, where it is your time to shine with me, your hostess, Prophetess T. Have a good evening. Talk to y'all soon. We thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with Prophetess T.